Hey guys, it's Scott Howard here. You guys don't know who I am yet, but you will. Today I'd like to talk to you guys about subsidies. Now, subsidies are the flip side of the coin on tariffs, which I did a video on a couple weeks ago. While a tariff is a tax you put on import goods, a subsidy is a grant that government gives to businesses domestically. So, for example, a good example is the farm subsidy. So, the government, say that Farmer Joe grows corn, and the price of corn is pretty low, and so he's not quite making enough money to stay in business. The government will step in and give Farmer Joe $100,000 a year. That way he can stay in business. That way he can keep corn production up. Um, the principle behind these subsidies tends to be stabilize the market and keep domestic industry competitive. And as with most things government does, it's wrong. Um, Subsidies are unconstitutional. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say take my money and give it to businesses, any business. And on top of that, subsidies are bad economics. They pervert the system. And what I mean by that is the free market creates incentives for companies to succeed and fail. Right? If your company does well, if it produces a product people want, it's going to succeed. And subsidies pervert that by saying, oh no, your company's failing, we'll give you money anyway. In a free market situation, a company that didn't produce a good enough good, would treat its customers badly, would just fail. Didn't have enough sales, it'll take a loss, it would fail. That's how the free market works. Subsidies pervert that because they keep unprofitable businesses in power and running for political reasons instead of economic. Again, a really good example of this is the farm subsidy. So everybody wants to talk about how everybody wants to subsidize farms, because they believe that the farmer is the quote backbone of America, right? So if farms go under, our food production collapses, yada yada yada. Couple things. One, most farm subsidies go to farms that don't need them. So the average farm household income was like $10,000 higher than the average non-farm household income. Most farms don't need subsidies. Most farms make money by themselves. And most farms are corporate farms. Like there are a lot of. So let me rephrase it. A majority of farms in America are family owned, but a majority of production is done by corporate farming. And that's where most of the subsidies go. The average mom and pa farmer isn't getting the subsidy and shouldn't. Like he doesn't deserve it. Farmers, Calvin Coolidge once famously said, farmers have never been particularly rich. There's not much government can do to help that. But on top of that, the corporate farms that farm millions of acres don't need those subsidies. And when they get them, that perverts the system and keeps them in power over somebody who may be able to grow the food at a cheaper cost. And that brings me to my next point, in that subsidies pervert the price index. And so what subsidies do is they artificially keep prices low because the government is paying farmers to keep prices low. That's not okay. If we ended the subsidies, those farms that were gonna fail. Other farms would raise their prices. Like people talk about low commodity prices. The best way to get rid of low commodity prices would be to end tariffs and end subsidies. Once the free market has equalized, commodity prices would rise because as farmers failed, the demand for commodities would go up, meaning prices go up. That's how the market works in every other system. I don't know how to see why that wouldn't work here. Another good example of subsidies is the housing subsidy. And what I mean by that is when government gives money to banks to give out mortgages. This famously caused the 2008 crash. It was not a collapse of the free market. It was not a failure of the free market. What caused the financial collapse in 2008 was the government giving banks billions of dollars to hand out mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. So poor families who didn't have a stable income and could not afford to own a house but wanted a house. You hand out these subprime mortgages, and then when the subprime, and he had thousands of them, and which meant that housing prices were artificially inflated, which meant that people wanted to jump on the wagon, and so they bought more houses and flipped them, meaning prices went up further. On top of that, and this is the deregulatory part. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. Banks took those mortgages, they bundled them up, they chopped them into a bunch of tiny securities, and then they sold them across the financial market. And so when all the mortgages went bad and the banks went belly up, nobody knew how much those mortgages were worth, and so they became toxic assets, so everybody dumped them. That's how you get AIG and I can't think of the investment bank that failed September 15th, 2008, and then AIG the day after. That doesn't happen if the government doesn't subsidize housing. There are other examples of this. The car automobile bailouts of 2009, really good example. If you bail out the automobile industry, you don't get any better product. Oil subsidies is another really good example. The ethanol subsidy is a very, very, very famous example. Ethanol is not efficient. Ethanol is not. The price of ethanol is not market worthy, and the market has yet to decide that ethanol is worth anything. But the government feels that it needs to be subsidized, so it's subsidized. Anyway, that's about it. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you learned something. If you did, drop a subscribe and leave a comment. If you didn't, leave a comment anyway. Share this video with anybody you see. And as always, have a good time. I'll see you guys in the next video.